Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Dark Neuron. Today we have got a really interesting story for you, so sit back, relax, and let's get started.
The first thing I noticed about the house was that the birds wouldn't land on it, not on the roof, not on the fence, not even on the crooked telephone wire that hung above the yard like a loose thread. Every other house on that empty road had sparrows chirping, crows arguing, leaves rustling with life. But around that house, there was silence. The kind of silence that feels like someone is listening. People in the nearby town called it the forgotten house, not because it was hidden. In fact, it sat right beside the old road where everyone could see it. But no one talked about it anymore. No one visited. No one fixed the broken windows or cut the grass that had grown taller than the mailbox. It had simply been erased from people's lives. Naturally, that made me curious. I had heard stories about it since childhood. The usual small town whispers. Lights turning on at night when the electricity had been cut years ago. Footsteps heard by drivers who stopped near the gate. A family who once lived there but left suddenly in the middle of winter, taking nothing with them, the kind of stories people tell just to make a place feel creepy. So I decided to spend one night there. Just one. I arrived a little before sunset. The house looked worse up close. The paint had peeled away like sunburned skin. The porch sagged slightly, as if the building itself was tired of standing. One of the upstairs windows was open, gently tapping against the frame with each breeze. Tap, tap, tap. I told myself it was just the wind. The front door wasn't locked. It opened with a long groan that echoed through the hallway. The air inside smelled old, dusty, and strangely cold. Not the natural cold of an abandoned building, more like the cold of a basement freezer. My flashlight beam swept across the living room. Furniture was still there, a couch covered in a white sheet, a small table with a cracked lamp, a bookshelf that still held a few old paperbacks. It looked less like a house that had been abandoned, and more like a house where someone had paused their life and never returned. I walked through each room slowly. Kitchen, dining room, hallway, nothing unusual, just dust. But then I found something strange. The clocks, every clock in the house, on the walls, on the shelves. Even a tiny alarm clock on a bedroom table had stopped at the exact same time. 2:17, not 2:16, not 2:18, exactly 2:17. I laughed when I noticed it. Old clocks stop all the time. Batteries die. Springs break. There was probably a simple explanation. Still, I took a photo of one of them, just in case. Night fell quickly after that. The darkness outside the windows became thick and heavy, like spilled ink. The road beyond the trees disappeared completely. My phone signal vanished too, which was expected, but the quiet wasn't. The house was too quiet. Old houses usually make noise. Wood creaks, pipe stick, wind pushes through cracks. But here it felt like the building was holding its breath. Around midnight, I settled in the living room with a sleeping bag and a lantern. I remember thinking how ridiculous the whole situation was. People had probably scared themselves with ghost stories for years, and here I was proving it was just another empty house. That's when I heard the footsteps, slow, upstairs. One step, then another. I froze. For a moment I convinced myself it was the wood expanding from the temperature change. Houses do that sometimes. Then the footsteps crossed the floor above me, from one side of the hallway to the other. I grabbed my flashlight and stood up. Hello? I called. No answer. The beam of light shook slightly in my hand as I climbed the staircase. Each step groaned loudly beneath my weight, announcing my presence. But when I reached the top, the hallway was empty. The doors were exactly as I had left them, closed. Still, I checked each room carefully. The first bedroom. Nothing but an old mattress and peeling wallpaper. The second bedroom. A broken dresser and more dust. The third room at the end of the hall was different. Its door was open. I was certain it had been closed earlier. Inside was a child's bedroom. A faded blue wall with glow in the dark stars still clinging to the paint. A small wooden desk, and sitting on the floor in the center of the room. A toy train. It was moving, slowly circling a small plastic track. Click, click, click. I stared at it for several seconds before my brain caught up. There were no batteries in it. The compartment was open, empty. The train continued its slow loop as if nothing was wrong. Click, click, click. That was the moment my confidence started to crack. I turned off the toy by lifting it from the track. The wheels stopped immediately. Silence returned, but not for long, because from somewhere in the house, a clock started ticking. Tick, tick, tick. I followed the sound back down the hallway, my flashlight beam bouncing across the walls. The ticking grew louder as I approached the staircase, and then I saw it, the clock at the bottom of the stairs earlier. It had been frozen like all the others. 2:17. Now the hands were moving. 2:16. 2:17. The second hand trembled and clicked forward. 2:18. The ticking stopped, and at that exact moment, something slammed the front door downstairs. Hard, the entire house shook. I rushed down the steps, heart pounding so loudly it felt like it might echo through the rooms. When I reached the entrance, the door was still closed, locked exactly as I had left it, but something else had changed. The temperature, the air felt colder, much colder, and in the thin layer of dust covering the wooden floor. There were footprints, fresh ones. They began at the front door and led deeper into the house, slowly, quietly, step by step, until they stopped directly beside the place where I had been sleeping. I stood there staring at them, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing, because the footprints only went one way. Nothing had walked in. Something had walked out from inside the house behind me. The staircase creaked, a single step, then another, and a voice, soft, almost curious, whispered from the darkness above, "You stayed past 2:17."
If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. Someone who loves stories like this. See you next time.